Hi everyone. So today we're going to talk about Anastasia Romanov, and this is something of significance and it's really pertinent to the times, and it's no play on words or anything like that. And when we say this is something of an interest, especially since we're talking about issues with Russia and Pandora's box and what exactly is going on with her. Because we want to see, was there collusion? Was there something of interest? Because hemophiliacs are really hard to find, and we want to see how that genetics was and how that family came to a demise where there was a question if she was still alive or not, and if it was a play on words. So right now we're just gonna start with a White Sage Tarot and see what she wants to bring forward and mediumship. She said collusion was a tower and collusion was a drink, and it was opaque at first in the original chalice. It was clear. It was a gold rim like, and then it was also like but it was clear. Like it was, if you saw it, it was clear, but then another person would see it like opaque, like milk like what milk and water. So when I say this, it said the Page of Pentacles, and that means it was an offer she called beknownst and but before. It means it was offered to them in a way that royalty would have been offered something to eat and drink. But when the Five of Swords comes in, that she says that's when collusion came in. And collusion, she says, is almost scientific. She's very intuitive when she speaks through, very intuitive. She she literally is showing me like after they would drink it, they would start crying and then they would have GI upset. And the Four of Wands says that they when they would have their balls and their get-togethers and their celebrations, it really wasn't. It was so derogatory and forthward that you couldn't, and they all went like this. The Six of Pentacles was a type of deal, a DEIL and a DIEL, which in today's world means it was uh a type of game that was a gamble, but it wasn't like racketeering or what we do as like war games, like Invictus games or something like that. The Knight of Wands says it was a put out, a type of put out to where they would be in a celebration, a good contract, a good treaty, and then, it would just still get difficult no matter how they worded it. And then it would disappear. She would show me like the next morning they were fine, but the symptoms were like 12 to a 24 and to a 58. And the, you just couldn't say enough about the Ten of Swords. You really can't. It was very disturbing. She's showing me that where she lives in her palace, in their home, their cottage, where they would travel, it was very cold. It was very dank. It was very, uh, she's showing me a fire. She's showing me the chariot card. And again, you can't make this up. The chariot card comes through, and like something would just come rushing in the door and say, "Sir, I have this. Your Majesty, I have this." The Five of Cups, he would say reunion, and he'd go, "No, be known." So there was something of like a type of affiliation. There was type of an association. There was a type of a get together. There was a type of everything. So no matter where they were, it followed them, and they're like, "This is just political. This is just political." So I see a lot of colds. I see a lot of sick. I see a lot of discomfort at times. And they're like, it's just the season. It's just the season. It's just the way it is. Their allergies, it's the pollen, it's the trees. And the Four of Pentacles says there was a lack of financial security that came in, and she's showing me the ruby and the gem, but it wasn't the ruby and the gem. It really was a string of pearls, which brings me, she shows us D. It was D. So the Seven of Wands says it was such a nasty struggle when you say D. That is where the rooting of the SS and the Third Reich and the Ninth Realm and the all those things from World War I and World War II were starting to come through. She says Germany was balanced, but it was lame and tame. Her words, not mine, in mediumship. The Queen of Wands says you couldn't sit stoically. You couldn't even be honorable at times, which means there wasn't even a court of law. And then something would pass away, and you would get wind and word of it, and then it would come in like a whirlwind with paper, and then it would come through. So when you see it, it was a type of trickery, and then all of a sudden you wake up. And so I gave you a preview. The imbalance of temperance in reverse says there was no balance. There was no balance. But I'm seeing actual Anubis. So when they look to the right, but actually it was the left, they saw Egypt. And when they saw the Wheel of Fortune there, their Wheel of Fortune was a star, and they're showing me the great pyramid of Giza. And that's when they started noticing words in their mouth. So when their judgment came in as part of wisdom and will and everything of themselves, because they would have been properly trained, that they would actually do a call to arms, an absolute call to arms. The Three of Cups says you couldn't get a group together, and they said more than three is hard. The Five of Pentacles, you lost money. You lost money. Oh, the Queen of Swords says no logic. Cut away at it. Cut away. And that is where the women would sit there and say, yes, cut away at it. But really, it was a four note of a B. And they started doing these hand gestures and saying, we are already properly trained. The Nine of Cups says, no, it's intuitive messaging. The Seven of Pentacles says this, that you can't go around, but you can't do a do. You can't do a do. So I'm seeing French and I'm seeing adu, but I'm seeing du. And that is where Hitler came in. And when they actually went into the trenches, and it was starting in with World War One, that is when they went into Reichslag. And when they went into Reichslag, that teenager, that male gentleman teenager, he burnt down a museum. And that is when, Germany was starting to go haywire. It was starting to really go haywire then. And it had to do with these partnerships that were disturbing of these couples, of those marriages. And they sat well. They really did. So some are showing me that during, Russia, they're showing me the woods, but they're also showing me those iconic scenes of like Schindler's List of what we know it today. And it had started really early, around 1908. That the Knight of Pentacles they would just pull the wool and the money and the paper and the coins right out of you, because what would happen is that they would say, this person or this family did this to me, and it's been going on for so long, and now I can take everything. And that was how a lot of the fighting started. But she's bringing me back over and showing me the woods where they had the lore, where if you walked in, you if for hunting, you just couldn't understand how fearful it was. And then they would say, Anastasia, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because they couldn't say psychic. The King of Cups says they had to sit so alone, so well balanced, so clean and clear. They wouldn't really eat or drink. They were so minimal to understand her. And when the Queen of Pentacles was like, she was well secure. They keep showing me this secure. The Ten of Wands says it was still difficult. It was still difficult because this Devil card comes in and says no matter how much they tried and how much they listened to Anastasia, and this is just energy reading through there, that you can't get enough. You can't get enough. The Eight of Pentacles says it was skilled work, absolute skilled work. They would listen to the kids, they would listen to the animals intuitively. They said there is something going on because my food doesn't look right. I mean, are we experiencing that today? Just say. So with the Eight of Wands, it says it came in fast. Like the way they preserved everything was so natural, with natural curing of meat. It brought in money. So where's the beef? Where is the beef? The Knight of Cups says it was an ill rush of emotion, that they had to go to source. And when they're showing me with a glimpse with source, when they would go and look at the fields and look at the farmer and the agriculture, they would look at the grain, and then they would look at how everything went through. And then they would go, yep, I already know. They really didn't have to do grammar. They really didn't have to do anything like they did in World War II and paying attention to the court documents. But Nine of Pentacles said when that incident of Reichschlag, and she does recognize that as highly significant with Nuremberg trials, that the Eight of Cups says this was they would start saying their words, these people, to be almost like a forewarning. The Ten of Pentacles says you couldn't get out fast enough, and that's when all of a sudden it would just happen. She's saying me that they were aware that they were in a storm end. They were aware that something would happen, and they had to sit stoically. The Queen of Cups says you can't even cry when it happens, when they came in. So she's showing me her brother now. And there was a loss of money. And when they show me the doctor, they show me a dog, they show me the paper and the round table, and then they're showing me the room, and it's very dark, where they said he was a hemophiliac, which is a clotting disorder. They said it was a rule right thumb of BDE. And with that being said, that's where I say, just stop right there. I can't say too much about that. You can't cry. There's so much anxiety when they heard that, because that was something that was their fears realized, that there was no contentment after that, and they had to go to war. They had to go to war. It was such assault that the Seven of Swords says, when you come in, you can't do. You can't do. It was a form of witchery and trickery unbeknownst. That was she showing me the dog and going into the woods where they would usually just go out on a hunt like we have seen with royalty. They're showing me like a pine bark, wood chips, remote viewing. It was up a path. It is an earthbound spirit of a woman. I see male energy is more childlike. Asa says she just wasn't psychic anymore. She wasn't psychic. She wasn't intuitive. She wasn't instinctive. She wasn't psychic. And her brother was now what they call it. That was condemning to death, condemned to death. It was so heartbreaking that even the women said, I will put on a military uniform and I will go in. And it caused such a pause of a rise up with those individuals in that area. And they say, why is this so bad that he has a hard time stopping bleeding or he's bruising? I mean, there's really nothing major about that. And they're like, you don't understand. He'll just go. So with that, that is where they had no foresight. No foresight. It was something in the back, but really I see them hitting their head, like falling down at times. And it was some sort of a wish fulfillment. It was something they're showing me now, Romania. And when they came down from Romania, it was just energy, energy flowing through. Four of Swords was something of like a containment, like a knighting. She's making me look to the side. I see. You can't contain what comes forth to you, my child, because you can't do it enough to be contained, well maintained, and shared out. And that popped off Russia so bad to where they opened up a box. So when it happened, you can't do a do. So let's go to the playing cards. Seven of Clubs, man, it was a gamble. They played poker and chips that night. The 10 of Clubs says they came in and wrote it out after the game. The Jack of Clubs says their gain came through and knew. The Queen of Spades says you can't cut it out with the Queen. And that's how they were speaking to the Jack of Spades says, go get the kid, go get the girl, go get the brother. The Three of Hearts says containment, joy, and relevation. And we said relevation. Yep, relevation. The Jack of Hearts says you can't sue, you can't boo, you can't loo, you can't cake. And it would hit over to France afterwards with the King of Clubs. And he would be sitting and saying, I'm playing a game. I got the two of diamonds here, and Lou is a boo of a soup. And it went right through so hard that you can't do. So this Joker card, is it a fly by night? Is it a new Seven of Hearts says a do of a moo of a shoe? And I've said that before. And it seems to be a common finality, and it came a theme and to a greatness of known that the Ace of Diamonds says you can't be a boo. You can't be a boo. The Ten of Spades says no. And we said, Anastasia, how did you learn how to do that? She goes, Six of Clubs is a Ramaru. And that is the clue in Russia that the fourth right to the Reich to the hike was like ghost land, and that earthbound spirits were causing a havoc upon the land, but they weren't. It was just an illusion, delusion, because that's what the Eight of Spades says. So what was true, what was real? Was she illusional? Was she delusional? Was she mentally cared for? Was she mentally insane? Was she all of it? Because that's often a crack through. Because the Five of Diamonds says, yeah, it fits the shoe and it fits the bell. Because the Five of Spades says, what did you ingest? So a lot of times they would rule out everything, even up to witchcraft and trickery, before they went into law enforcement and before military and politics. But it changed on a flip of a dime, which caused war first before a look-in. And that was between 1908 and 1912. And she's very quick still in mediumship of showing me glimpses, because she goes right over to the Titanic and I'm seeing the mucky water of Belfast. And I say, yeah, I see it and I hear it of the mermaid lore in the shipping tale. And right now it's coincidental that all the ports are on a strike. So the Seven of Spades says, how well do you do with a suit? And I went, a Susie Q, a Susie Q. So then it goes into what we used to call back then leprechaun magic of a lucky strike. And the Seven of Diamonds came through. And so when she said all of our issues stemmed from one thing, and it went to 17 countries and then came back in, you go, how did that happen? And you're looking at the source, and I see a man in a robe, or is it a female? We can't tell. And it was so obscure, but just opaque. That energy, that psychics couldn't see anything, instinctives, intuitives, nobody with that experience. So you had to lay low, you had to go along, and you had to play along, and you had to gain and gather through. So she's trying to lead through a little bit. She's showing me the rope, and she says Belfast pulled through, but it wasn't well. It really wasn't well. And I see the woods still. I see the woods. Now, when you contain it and you see it, you can't do well, sir. You can't do well, sir. There wasn't the water. It wasn't the wells. It wasn't the cup. It wasn't a wooden cup. It was a box of known that you can't be well. Knight of Wands says it's a stop. The world in reverse means it was a broken order. It was a broken contract. It was a broken twig. She's like, that was a grab. Happy, happy, yeah. And then they would go along and they would do it just like anyone else when it came to these mysterious things. She's saying that death was a type of coming in. And she keeps doing this with me. She's doing this. It came out of the left. Known, left, top, right, bottom, new, Sue. And when that happened, you say, yup, yup. The Five of Pentacles shows they were impoverished, but they weren't impoverished. She said that we weren't impoverished. We weren't impoverished. We still had gain. We still sat pretty, as you say. We still give it out, but we can't do it. So basically what she was saying was that she came fast. That you basically she threw it right at me. She literally went, have it all. It came in so fast. You couldn't put a due date on what would happen. You knew it would happen and how it would happen, but you didn't know where it would happen and what date and what time until numbers came through. And that was their ending of a like a fiery start. So it was skilled. They did work it well, all forms of craft and craftsmanship. And that's happy, but there was still this Knight of Wands of a knight, an NITE of a vigilance. And I do see the hypervigilance. I do see a vigilante. I do see two wands, and all of a sudden it would just bust out. And she says that's when the bombs started coming and the trenches started coming in, even around where she was, and they would move about. Solitude. She's showing me solitude. She says, I don't really want to show you exactly what happened if I was still known to live. After they said that happened to my family, she said, my brothers, my kids, my all. The Four Cups says she sat there a lot like this. Around chaos all the time. Like she would sit there like this and people would be arguing and it would be like time sat still and stand still. And then it would halt. And then she said, how did you do that? And she went, gone, gone. They still have a lot of inheritance, a lot of wealth, that family of descents. They're not to be known. They don't even know. And we say, Anastasia, who are you talking about? She goes, I just got a download. That was her terms. That was her terms. It was so sad on what happened that you couldn't cry, but you had anxiety. You would feel it. So he said, where are you going with us now in the psychic reading? And she would do about and loud and tout and B and C. And that's just me as myself, as Jen Peck, acting like her on how she would be like. That was how derogatory it was. She says, I mean, I would just sit there and I would just say it and I just couldn't even get it out. So as I'm holding the selenite and I'm seeing this like this over the eyes. It's like a peering of a window. It's very disturbing. But when that happened, and that's when it came right in when she was trying to explain what would happen next, because it was such a hard grab, because she had a moment. She says it's about 45 minutes. She had this grab what they were doing at that moment. And that's when that whole play out that the family had seen and multiple others, and they grabbed the family. And when they grabbed the family, they said, nope, nope, no, it didn't happen. She goes, yes, it did. Yes, it did. In a way unknown. She says, go for your moonstone rune. So she she's just trying to show me like her energy is still so strong. It was like this game of catch a cat. And when it came through, it was a wheel of a continuance, but it was like a type of meaning of a temperament where when you write it out, you sit still. And the phrase would come and you would actually go, and then I go. And when you see soul in this type of game, you sit and sat still and you had to be quickly solid. So I'm seeing like loose, like they didn't feel well. And it would cause havoc, like they didn't feel like altogether, like you had a really, really bad cold and maybe a fever coming on. And they would get this feeling like they needed to put on a uniform, and then it would be joy. And then they'd have an inappropriate laugh. And she says it was like going into rooms all the time, where she would look at the cigarettes, she would look at the ash, she'd look at the ashtray, she would see the pipe, she would see the cigar, and she would like play with ashes. And all of a sudden they'd just be nothing. All of a sudden. It was such a run and go game that they were playing in the palace. You didn't know if they lived or if they died. And then she's showing me medical. And they said it never happened. We don't have it in documents. It's at night nadis. Nadis means it is hidden in the dark. What truly happens. Just like I was saying with Salem witch trials, it's like a backstory. That is how strong still that energy is. This is a feeling of a lot of mortar around her, that feeling. I see a lot of like a C4 around her. I'm seeing milk products a lot around her. I'm seeing they would see beef on the table, but it's more chicken and at times fish. I do see mercury. I do see water at times and almost like a juice, like a type of juice. I don't see bread. She's trying to show me like almost like it was disturbing. She's trying to like it was disturbing on how they played this game before the ending where they executed the father, the mother, the siblings. And it was a question if she had gotten on that train, like in the movie, she got on a train and remained alive but could not remember herself, or if she was because you couldn't have accountability on her. Dega means that you can't go about in a way unknown, but it meant that the sword and the stone was still hidden like Arthur and the king, and you couldn't look at England at that time. You couldn't look at England at that time. It literally was almost, I hate to say, as a relation to my big fat Greek wedding, where she says, "No, the woman is the one who turns the head of the man." They said that was where the wealth was, and it isn't. So where are we really going with this? She goes away. That's all they said. She went away. She was alive. She says 1912, 1918, 1922. It was a question. 1922, 1928. It was a missing. It was a Perth. It was a poth, a POTH. It was a known, ANON. It was a nun. I do see the monasteries. I see the churches. I see them looking through as much as they could. And like she's missing again and missing again. I see her very white, opaque, and running through 1922, 1929. I see the train. She says it was a flax by night, and flax by night means you can't do a do. I mean, she'll always be there. She's saying, I'll always be there, no matter what, to watch over a do. Her heritage and estate is so strong in Russia, still to this day, through the runes, that it became an ill fate of a Marxist view. And the Marxist view came in so quick with Lagu on that rune, it became a type of trolling elsewhere. So, what actually brought them to the part of Marxism to a communism to where they say, no, we're heavily guarded and you don't do what you do here. I don't care what your values and beliefs are. Because when we actually stand and collect through and we hear that word, that means it's a birth, and we see the trees, and they're still very haunted, some of these individuals, about going into like a huntsman to like a cryptid, like almost a Bigfoot. There's a lot of folklore where they won't talk about it and they just have no tolerance. They have no tolerance for anything still. They will burn it and torch it out. But in relation, and it's not supporting those views because they don't align with my own, is that it literally states it's just a psychic reading. And that is when Russia kicks up again. So when it goes back to Anastasia, living or not living, was it living? Was it power? Was it a gift? Was it something given to her that even in the afterlife, she is still so strong that you can't tell if she continued living or not? So I'm just asking one more, just one more. And she says, get your crystal quartz, get your crystal quartz. So when you are known and you are to be the one world class act, you can't be. And those were the last words she says was heard. It meant that she actually made so much difference with what she said and heard and saw and felt and repeated out and pushed out and was adamant about what would happen and the siblings, that no matter what, it it was such a nasty comment as what you would hear at the end of your life. You have to say, did she? As someone who is a medium, I would say that people really do live on in a way unknown to be renowned. And also, we talked about earthbound spirits on how they stay with us. So for her, and that question, if she did live on, she most likely did live on through others. And that is how they start noticing differences. And when that would happen, they start seeing this and like, yeah, she's just toying and playing with us and letting us know she's still there. That does happen. That is a phenomena. It does occur from time to time. It comes out in occurrences that are beknownst. They come out in occurrences that are known and well known and are about to be known as a reveal, that those who are passed on in our lifetime and multiple still guard us and protect us and watch over. And that's all she's really saying, Anastasia Romanov, that, sometimes in mediumship, they just reveal a little bit too much. And I said, no, they didn't reveal too much. And that's just how I am. With that being said, if you have any questions or concerns or comments, feel free to email me and feel free to leave a comment. Have a good day, and we'll talk to you soon.